Welcome to Vocatio. We are Steve and Nicole Whitaker. We like to record conversations about Christian calling for college students. And this is a great time to be starting season 2 of Vocatio. It's very exciting. A week ago, last week, we began a new semester at Trinity College. It's our 4th year underway at Trinity College. So we're very excited. There's a lot to be excited about. The Lord has blessed Trinity College. We're having some growth. We've got more students, so new faces around campus, which means around here at Sovereign Grace Church of Louisville. So very excited about that. And we're off to a great start. Our students are doing a great job digging in, some great discussions already about history and literature and Bible and, of course, Greek. They're learning Greek. They're loving it. I don't know if they're loving it as much as I'm loving it, but they're getting the alphabet under their belt, so they're doing just fine there. So I thought it might be helpful for us to talk a little bit about a theme that I used in my convocation speech to our students on the very first day of class. We gathered them all together, and I opened with a quote from Don Quixote. Right? So Don Quixote, this novel, I know you know it well, written in 1605. Many consider it to be the first modern novel, and in it this crazy old man, Don Quixote of La Mancha, he goes about on a quest to become a knight. He believes himself to be a knight errant, and he takes one of the little peasant guys from the village, Sancho Panza, along the way, and they're about to leave on another fantastic journey. And he tells Sancho Panza, "Sancho, we are about to dip our hands up to the elbows in what they call adventures." And I love that because it captures what Don Quixote thinks is happening, right? Now he's a nutter. And so the story is just one sort of comedic take after another. Most people just know him getting smacked in the head by a windmill blade. But there's all sorts of things that happen. But the point is they're going on adventures. And he conceives this as an adventure. And that then, now fast forward about 430 years to G.K. Chesterton. And there's a G.K. Chesterton quote that we love, where he says, and I think this is an orthodoxy, he says, an adventure is just an inconvenience rightly considered. And an inconvenience is just an adventure wrongly considered. And I think this is a great way to begin a school year, to be thinking that way, or to begin any kind of transition, any kind of new thing. Because every new thing starts off as an adventure, right? A school year begins with, there's new books, new syllabi, new classmates, maybe a new backpack. I mean, there's all this stuff, right? And that makes it fun and exciting, but it's not long before the shine wears off. The homework comes due. You got to write a paper, whatever it is, and pretty soon that adventure has turned into an inconvenience. So I'm curious about it from your perspective as a mom of students, but also as a wise older woman, watching both the young women, but also the young men kind of make their way through this transition of a new thing, new school year, to it's an adventure, to it's an inconvenience. And they begin to consider it wrongly. So what have you observed in this? Right.
Yeah, no, I love that Chesterton quote, because it captures something that we are so confused about. And I think even more since Chesterton, the superhero movie, the adventure movie, they've kind of conditioned us all to think and feel as if somehow an adventure is something that you do from the comfort of your couch, and it's kind of like a feeling. It's this exciting emotion that you get when you maybe go on a roller coaster, or you go to the beach with your family, or that an adventure is supposed to give you this kind of romantic, kind of exciting feeling with all the safety of your living room couch. Right? And none of the discomfort.
Or all the control of you being the one to take the initiative.
Exactly.
Like, I decided to go on that roller coaster. Exactly. I decided to go for a hike in the wilderness, whatever it was.
Right. And so we end up not realizing that adventures are really inconveniences.
They typically are, yes. And all ours have been.
That's right. Right. Adventures are difficult. They really are difficult. When it says you'll experience trials of many kinds, count it all joy. Count it all joy and adventure when you face trials of many kinds. I think that Chesterton is capturing the idea of that verse there. We're supposed to look at trials and difficulties differently. We're supposed to flip this upside down
Right.
and see that, first of all, it doesn't feel like we think it's going to feel. Kind of a bit of a distant analogy, but Ed Welch, in one of his books, and I can't remember where, talks about how change doesn't feel comfortable. Like if you're changing and growing in godliness, that's not going to feel right. It's not going to feel comfortable right at first. And that's actually a sign that you're doing it. That it's one of the signs. Obviously, you need to be doing it biblically. So discomfort, trial, difficulty, inconvenience, sometimes we bring that on ourselves because we are simply foolish, right? We make foolish decisions. We do foolish things. But often, if we've made good and godly decisions to take risks, to step out, to take a new step into what God has called us to do, those things are going to be met with lots of troubles.
Right.
And if your way is as comfortable and smooth as it was when you were in the 6th grade and your mom packed your lunch for you, you're probably not doing grown-up adventures yet.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think that's exactly right and very wise to point out that the world would lure us into a life of comfort.
Right.
And it is true that it is a great blessing that we have as many creature comforts as we enjoy these days. So we are not like weird self-flagellation, like we don't wear burlap or something. We're not doing that, right? We're not ascetics. That's
I enjoy watching an adventure movie sitting on the couch with my family.
We appreciate air conditioning and refrigeration and antibiotics and all the things that are blessings of living in this modern age.
Right.
But I think it's important that we recognize that in the Bible, the language of spiritual growth is almost always the language of hardship, the language of struggle, of competition, of like going for it. One of the words sometimes that's translated as struggle, when Paul says we struggle for this, agonizo, right? It's a Greek word, and it's where we get well, because we've talked about it before. It's where we get our English word agony. And I think that we live in a world that has become very successful in insulating us from thoughts of death.
Right. And
even over the last, so like for the Puritans, for instance, or the Reformers, or most people throughout human history, death was a constant reality. But so is hardship and discomfort. And we've gotten to the point that almost every even minor inconvenience and discomfort we try to scrub it from our lives. Right. And again, without being weird and like, we're not running at that kind of thing. Right. There is something to saying, like, as Christians, we should lean towards doing hard things when we can, as a way to stretch our dependence upon God, to put to death our self-satisfaction, our self-reliance, our self-glorification, lots of self-words, to use self-control. There's a self-word we can get behind. I think those kind of situations, whether it's a new semester and having to really kind of get in a new routine of working hard for school, or having to get up early to take a shift at work and go in a way that's uncomfortably early, that discomfort serves us, because that discomfort, it's the sandpaper that starts rubbing down the rough edges of our character. And I think the Lord wants to use that. Right.
And I think, we hope, we're not trying to be the ones who come along and say, you think you're heading off on an adventure, starting college or starting a new job or getting engaged to be married, and we're here to tell you it's just all trouble and problems. And
no, not at all.
Now it's true, man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. But what we're trying to do is actually encourage you that when you hit these points, if the Lord has led you along the way, if you have prayed, if you have followed his word, if you have gotten godly counsel and walked in the Lord's ways, he doesn't just for sport pull the rug out from under us, say, oh, gotcha, you thought you were following me, surprise, you missed it. So when we experience those difficulties, we do need to stop and say, okay, did I sin in some way, or was I unwise? So Lord, something I need to see here. Did I cause these difficulties?
Right.
But we also need to consider that there's the factor of Satan is going to oppose everything that is good. And so if we experience resistance in things that we're doing, that we feel the Lord has called us to do, that are walking in obedience, we should view that as a sign that should get us excited. That is the adventure.
Exactly.
That is the excitement, because what happens when we get in a situation where we're like, oh no, the Lord led me here and now I've got too much schoolwork and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do? Pray.
Yeah.
It's supposed
Yeah.
to drive us to the Lord. Okay.
Right.
And so if we're all comfortable and we've got it all under control, that's not actually the place we want to be. We want to be in the place where we are constantly being pressed into dependence on the Lord and recognizing He is sovereign over all things. So we want to grow in wisdom, but part of growing in wisdom is recognizing, what is this? You were saying Don Quixote mistakenly thought that doing a lot of foolish things was actually the adventure. But Scripture would tell us that suffering for Christ, taking risks and doing bold things for Christ is where the adventure really is.
Yeah, and I think one thing that can help us here a lot is to remember that we live in a world where godliness is opposed by the world, the flesh, and the devil.
Right.
And so I think where that should take, if we just follow that train of thought, if efforts at godliness are opposed by the world and the flesh and the devil,
and then
means,
they are opposed by those three enemies.
Yeah, exactly.
We shouldn't be surprised.
Well, exactly. What that leads us to think is, if we experience friction, if we experience headwind, if a thing is hard, there's a good chance you're doing something right. If what you're doing is aligned with the Word of God and can be affirmed by good and wise Christian counselors and so on, like all the things that we would look for in Christian decision making. If we can say all that, and then you're like, okay, I'm all prayed up. I think I'm obeying the Lord in this. And I press out into a thing. It's like, oh, wow, that was tougher than I thought it would be. Great. That means what you're probably experiencing is pushback from the world, the flesh, and the devil, because they're opposing those expressions of godliness in you. And so I think that can be a great encouragement. In fact, I think, and this is very counterintuitive, especially for young people these days. But I think that for many people, if you are feeling like you're just sailing and things are just going super smooth, that might be a cause to say, what's wrong here? What am I missing? Is there an opportunity for the Lord that I'm supposed to be taking that I'm missing? Am I not because I think that opposition, that friction, that headwind, our flesh is going to oppose godliness. The world people are going to be like, no, you're not doing it right. And the enemy is going to throw up all kinds of roadblocks in front of godliness. If you're not pursuing God's agenda in this, if you're not making a difference in this, the devil's going to be like, sure, go right ahead. And the world will be like, yay, keep it up. And the flesh will be like, fine. You know? So I think that feels very backwards. I think especially to a lot of young people who have been raised on the conveniences of modern culture and modern technology.
And that's not wrong, but just can be a temptation.
Exactly.
To misunderstand the way the world really is.
Yeah, and this becomes a worldview thing, because it's recognizing the world is training us to think a certain way, to desire a certain thing, and that's ease and comfort, and we live in an instant world. Microwaves, and if you have to work for something, it's just like, oh gosh, this is taking so long. Something you got to download something to your it's like 2 minutes went by. Like, what is taking so long? We just live in a world that prizes ease and comfort and convenience. And I think as Christians, we have to recognize those are not the things God prioritizes. It's not His top priority for us.
Exactly. And I think this is great preparation for young people, for their callings as husbands and wives and parents.
Yes.
I was talking to a mom the other day. Her children are around my age, I guess. But when they were younger, when they were little, she suffered a great tragedy in her life, a great hardship, and she was now reflecting on this years later. She had reached an anniversary of this tragic event. She was reflecting on it, and so she was looking back at her journals, and she was actually laughing about this now. Her journals are 2 to 3 sentences, and she's starting a thought, and then finally she said, I had one day where I wrote like a small paragraph, and then at the end I wrote I was interrupted 5 times before I was able to get to the end of this thought. Okay, and she had to stop. Okay, she was interrupted by her children who needed her. Are they an inconvenience, or are they the adventure? Are they a problem, an interruption? No, she saw that as God that was God's calling for her at that time. It was not to write down the profound things that the Lord was showing her. That's something I encouraged her to do now, because I think the Lord showed her some deep and encouraging things that could encourage others. But her job at that moment, her vocation, her calling, was to serve her children. And she was doing that. And so if we view life as every little inconvenience to our plans and our agenda is a problem, is frustrating, we're not going to be prepared to raise the next generation. They are our calling. Parenting, once you have a child, that little soul, that eternal soul is your calling as parents, as a father, especially as a mother. And so viewing those inconveniences now, these, you don't have transportation, or you got
to work a job, you got to be at Chick-fil-A at 5 a.m. or something. Yeah.
Right. Or, the platform for your college doesn't work. And, you can't download something. I was talking to a student the other day, and she thought an assignment was due at 5 or at midnight, and it was due at 5. And so she's doing it at 11, and lo and behold, she was already late, right? She thought she was being responsible.
Yep.
Those are the kind of inconveniences. I mean, I could go on and on.
Sure.
So I think it's really important for young people. You are going to be called, most of you, to marry, to raise families in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And we have to start viewing adventure rightly now in our vocation, in our calling, which is what this podcast is all about. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And I think that we can also then take it one step further to say, well, look, great that Chesterton has this pithy little quote. Yeah. Okay, fine. Right. Does this hold up in Scripture?
Right. Exactly.
And so we want to ask the question from Romans 4:3, from Galatians 4:30, what do the Scriptures say? And so we always, let's press into this. Absolutely. And say, does this line up with biblical truth? And one of the things that strikes me is how often the Bible speaks to this. Mm-hmm. And I think it reminds us there's nothing new under the sun. Right. And so this is not a distinctly modern temptation. Right? This is a human temptation that has existed as long as there have been humans, mm-hmm. and as long as there have been sinful humans living in a fallen world, which means everybody has been tempted this way. And so I think of verses like Galatians 6:9, do not grow weary in doing good. Mm-hmm. And that verse wouldn't be there if people weren't tempted mm-hmm. to grow weary, for an adventure to become an inconvenience. I think about verses like Colossians 3:23 and 24, work heartily as unto the Lord, because mm-hmm. when an adventure becomes an inconvenience, you start to think, I don't really want to give it my all. Yeah. You lose heart. You start doing half-baked work. And I think about verses like Revelation 1:9, when John says, I am your brother in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Christ Jesus. Right. And that's a phrase that from Revelation 1:9 onward, that phrase, patient endurance, gets repeated a number of times in the book of Revelation, because as John is getting this picture of what is the world like right now, that's really what the book of Revelation is, this time between the first and second coming of Christ. What does it take to live in this fallen world? Well, there's tribulation, so life is hard, but there's a kingdom, so we know that we have a king whom we serve. The fact that there is tribulation means that endurance is needed, but the fact that there's also a kingdom over that tribulation means patient endurance is possible. Right. And so,
and ends in hope fulfilled.
Exactly, yeah. And there is, I think that is that knowing that there is a future. Mm-hmm. Where we will one day be freed from all the hardship of living in a fallen world and all the pain and difficulty of being sinners ourselves, both sinning against others, against the Lord, and being sinned against mm-hmm. by others. Partly that future hope is that's part of what makes receiving these inconveniences as adventures possible.
Right, exactly.
Is because we see it won't always be like this. But this is the method that the Lord wants to use right now to shape us to be more like Christ. Right. And so I think now, beginning of the semester, this is a great time for students in particular to go for it, to embrace that. It would be so easy to bail, right? To be like, you know what, I've had a couple of years of college, I just don't like it. And I don't think, and off you go. Or to just do like, I can get by with kind of half-baked effort. And, or I'm going to do, I just really want to, I'm going to go check out my social media first and play some video games first, go hang out with my friends first. And if I have time left, I'll do my homework. Right. And to see, no, if you are a student right now, this is your calling.
Exactly.
God has called you to be a student every bit as much as he has called you to be a Christian or a son or daughter or a brother or sister, or any of those things. He's called you right
Mhm.
now to be a student. This is your job
Mhm.
that the Lord has appointed for you. And so give yourself to it. This is your adventure for as long as you are called to be a student. And that's a gift.
Right.
And so I think this is a great time of year for students to think,
Right.
let's run at it.
Yeah. And I think that verse in James, count it all joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. James Matier, I've probably said it before, but he says that so much is packed into that little word it, right? In terms of you can have he says every small rub and every large trial, okay?
Wow.
And so count it all joy, I think sometimes that means laughing. That means actually being like, oh, isn't this hilarious? Coffee just spilled all over my new laptop. Isn't this?
I would find it hard to laugh.
Okay, you might not laugh right away, but hopefully you can laugh at some point. But laughing at the things that God allows, that he sends, the trials that he sends, because you're not laughing because it's funny that you just lost all this money.
Right.
You are laughing because God has a way bigger plan for your eternal glory and salvation in him, in what he's doing.
That's right.
And so we can laugh at the days to come, at the hours to come, just like the Proverbs 31 woman. I also will just say, last thing, Elizabeth Elliot also talks about this in Keep a Quiet Heart, and I am going to butcher the quote exactly, but she talks about how viewing interruptions or trials or difficulties, friction, as when one is going about one's work that God has appointed, viewing those as God's work. So when we have these things that come into our lives that we think, this is an inconvenience, this isn't what I wanted, no, wait a minute. In our vocation as a student, in our vocation as a mother, in our vocation as a father, a pastor, whatever you're doing in the moment, whatever God is bringing you to work on, whether you wanted it or not, that is his work. That is his vocation.
Right.
That is his vocatio for you, writ small, that little moment where you, okay, how can I fulfill my calling in the next 5 minutes and have a good attitude in response to this person who isn't being kind to me, or to this inconvenience or trial that I'm facing.
Yeah. I think that's really good. A really good exercise for students to think about. And maybe a way to bring this in for a landing then is, I think if we had the chance to encourage students to think very practically about this, one thing students could do is to take these categories of adventure and inconvenience and start by listing the inconveniences that are in your life right now. And those could be anything, right? It could be anything from, the commuter parking lot is 37 miles from my building, and that's a huge pain for me to get there. Or my lab partner is super lazy and I have to do all the work. Or, I just don't like getting up at 5:30. It's just too early. I wish I could sleep in later. Or, whatever. There's lots of possible inconveniences. And I think for most young people, it would be good to take a few minutes on this, maybe in a quiet time this week, and really write them down. Like literally just write down however big or however small those inconveniences are. And then just pray over them and ask God, Lord, help me to change my thinking in this. And how do you want to transform this inconvenience into an adventure? The adventure will be, are there ways that you want to show me, God, are there ways you want to show me how you are at work through this inconvenience? This lab partner, do you intend for me to be able to preach the gospel through my patients with him or her? Do you want me to get up early as a way to die to myself? Is that the adventure that I might learn self-control? Maybe are you intending for me to use that 20-minute bus ride from the commuter parking lot to my building as a way to learn to profitably fill in every little nook and cranny with praying for my church and for my family, or memorizing vocabulary, whatever, I don't know. But is there how does the
get
Lord...
in that Greek vocabulary?
Oh, I love it.
That's the adventure.
That is for me. I know it's not for everybody, but there's something. I mean, but I think there is something there. I think if you could make two columns, there's an inconvenience. How does the Lord want to transform it into an adventure? What is that adventure? What is that blessing the Lord wants to send to you through that seeming inconvenience? And I think to pray about that and very literally write it down, make that very practical. I think young people would be, I think students, I think they'd be surprised at how quickly their attitude about it, their disappointment in it, their frustration in it, I think they'd be surprised how quickly those things would change.
I think that's great. And I would just set alongside that, at one point I took, is it James 1, count it all joy? I took that verse took the whole paragraph, and I typed it out on a piece of paper, and I left that little word "it." I had a little blank there, so I could take that inconvenience
Love it.
and stick it in there. So make the list of the inconveniences, and then set it aside. Count all joy.
Yes.
That's how you know you're looking at the inconvenience as an adventure, and it doesn't just stop there. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And this will make you mature and complete, not lacking anything. What are all young people who love the Lord trying to do? Hopefully you are striving for maturity.
Boom.
Mature and complete. This is how you get mature and complete at the end of your college vocation, is by counting these things all joy.
That's great. Well, I don't think we can improve on that. I think if students do that much, it's going to set them up for a great semester.
A lot of
and a
exciting
great opportunity
adventures.
to grow and seize hold of their vocation, their callings as students and Christians and everything else. So I think this is a good start. We've covered a lot of ground in our first episode here of Vocatio. Lots more to talk about this semester, and so we'll be back with more. All of this is brought to you by Trinity College of Louisville. We shape young men and young women for Christ and for the church, and you can learn more at trinitycollegelou.com. Thanks so much for joining us.